The film begins with Reacher dropping off at a store where he plans to sell his vinyl. While he was inside discussing with the owner of the shop, he noticed a strange car parked outside. A man sat behind the wheel looking around nervously, so Reacher's instincts felt something was wrong. Suddenly, the man moved out of his car and tried to kidnap a boy named Richard. The boy is the son of Zachary Beck, a powerful man who was involved in illegal trading. Without hesitating, Reacher rushed outside, trying to stop the kidnapping by pulling out his gun, firing at the kidnapper. Eventually, Reacher managed to shoot the goon's car tire, causing the car to spin out of control. And he was able to kill the kidnapper, thereby saving the teenager. Just then, a cop arrived at the scene, but Reacher accidentally shot him. Immediately, Reacher grabbed the confused boy into a van and speed away. He knew the law will be after him because he just shot an officer. Later on, more police officers start chasing after him, but because of his skills, he managed to escape. They both stopped in a parking lot so as to switch cars and the police wouldn't track them easily. He told Richard to call the police and return home on his own. But Richard was terrified and begged Reacher to help him get back to his father, promising that his father will use his connection to clear Reacher's name. After so many attempts of pleading, Reacher reluctantly agreed and drove to Beck's mansion. Once they were at the gate, the bodyguard named Paulie rudely requested that Reacher comes down to the vehicle for an inspection, but Reacher refused. However, after much push from Richard, he changed his mind. Once he was done with Reacher's check, the two went inside the house where Richard introduces Reacher to his family and the head of security named Chapman Duke. Zachary Beck finally met Reacher and was surprisingly grateful that Reacher had saved his son. He then offers Reacher a drink for saving his son's life, but Reacher doesn't accept. However, Beck promised to protect him from the cops by hiding his identity and offered him a job. Just as he proceeded to leave, Reacher took the glass cup of drink, before then revealing to Zachary that he gripped the cup firmly so Zachary can have a clear set of print to run. Later, Reacher goes to speak with Richard regarding his father not coming to check up on him. Although they are soon interrupted, as Reacher is informed that Zachary Beck wants to see him. Once he is with Beck, it is obvious Beck wants to be sure that he can trust Reacher, so for him to do that, he needs Reacher to prove himself. Reacher was forced to play a Russian roulette game in Beck's garage, with two guards watching. Reacher calmly squeezed the trigger several times, and each time the gun click was false. Beck was amazed and even a bit afraid, so he decided Reacher was trustworthy. Later on, Reacher is shown to his room, and once he was in, he began to look around for any hidden cameras. Once he was sure that there isn't any, Reacher brought out a phone from his shoe before making a call to inform the person at the other end that he is in. The scene then shifted to a few days earlier, where Reacher is just seated at the roadside. During this, Reacher goes to stop a young boy from stealing, before then offering him money. As soon as he was done with that, Reacher found a man known as Xavier Quinn in the street who he believed to be dead. Quickly, Reacher make a phone call to the 110th Special Investigators, requesting they find information about a person by the name Xavier Quinn. And that led him to Susan Duffy, who was in charge of a secret investigation into Zachary Beck. One of her undercover agents had gone missing and believed Beck had taken them. To get the evidence they needed, Reacher and Susan Duffy came up with a plan, and it turned out that the so-called kidnapper was actually one of Susan's agents, and even the police officer he shot was part of the plan, as both had been wearing a vest and the scene was staged. So Reacher could get close to Beck and investigate his rug company named Bizarre Bazaar. So back to the present day, Reacher suspected that the undercover agent is in serious danger and possibly locked in Beck's basement. So later in the midnight, Reacher climbed the top of the roof and nearly losing his balance, as the rooftop was slippery. However, he eventually sneaked into the garage and found a hidden door leading to a dark basement and searched every corner calling out for the missing agent, but instead of finding her, he discovered only her bracelet. A distressing sign that she had been moved or taken elsewhere, faced with grim new discovery. Meanwhile, after the call with Reacher, Susan approached Zachary bodyguard who was in charge of taking care of Richard to furiously question him about Teresa. However, Guillermo intervened while also insisting that she keep her cool. Back to Reacher, after his call with Susan, Reacher makes his way to his room. In the process, he starts listening to Beck's head of security, Duke, talking to someone and making his way to his room. Immediately, Reacher runs toward his room as he climbs the entire house from the outside to make his way inside. So when Reacher doesn't open his door after knocking continuously, Chapman barges inside and sees the window open. Initially, he feels that Reacher ran away, but the next moment, he sees him coming out of the bathroom. He informed Reacher that they got some information about the vehicle used in the attempted kidnap of Richard Beck, so he need Reacher to go investigate more on it. Quickly, Reacher called Susan Duffy to inform her about this, insisting that she reach the location where the truck is quicker to get rid of Richard's car, because if Beck finds the car, they get to know about everything. As Reacher was the only one besides Richard who saw the truck, the official story is that, before trying to get Richard into the pickup truck, the kidnappers set off an explosion in Beck's car, thereby killing the driver. So technically, there should be a lot of blood and brains in that car. While getting to the location, Angel Doll continues to talk a lot, but the important piece of information that Jack extracts from all that chattering is that Zachary Beck isn't the boss. There's someone else pulling the strings. Just as Duffy struggles to get the car out, Reacher and Angel Doll arrived at the location. Once they were inside, the informant tries to bribe the cop at the reception so that he can gain access in order to take pictures of the truck. However, the cop refuses, so as Angel Doll begins to pull out his gun, Reacher punches the cop in the face, knocking him unconscious. Afterwards, both of them reach inside the yard to find the truth. Angel Doll began taking pictures of the truck. Unfortunately, on his way out, he stops when he takes a look at the car that looks exactly like Richard's car. He tells Reacher that the car looked exactly like the Richard vehicle that was hit during the attempted kidnapping. Since Duffy has switched the plates, Jack claims that it's a different car and not the one that Beck's driver was driving. Plus, there are thousands of cars similar to this in the city, and it might be possible that it was someone else's car. After having a long day, Reacher tried to sleep, but Zachary knocked and get into Reacher's room, informing him that there is work to do. Nearby, Paulie and Reacher meet at the gym. Paulie asks him about how much he benches, to which Reacher says that he is not a big fan of working out. For him, it doesn't prove how strong a man is. As a result, he tells Paulie to play a little game that would seemingly prove who has more strength. So Paulie tries to bait Jack into fighting him, but Jack uses his wits to get Paulie to hurt himself, thereby riling him up. Just as a fight was about to ensue, Chapman arrived to stop them. Duke assigns a bizarre truck to Jack, tells him to deliver its contents to a location in New London, Connecticut. The truck will be tracked via GPS so that Jack can't take any detours, and he isn't allowed to check what's inside the container. Jack calls up Duffy and says that this whole thing is a test to see if he can be trusted, yet they need to look into what he is transporting. A moment later, they all arrived and immediately, they proceeded to do in accordance to their plan while bringing an experienced dog, but after a short check, they realized nothing was in the truck, proving this was a loyalty test. After a short while, Reacher arrived at the drop-off location to deliver the rugs, before taking another truck back to the warehouse. Once he was back, he finds Angel Doll, and the two engage in a long conversation, where he reveals to Reacher that he feels and believes Reacher is trying to fool everyone, and he isn't who he claims to be. Just as he was about to inform Duke about the whole stuff he found about Reacher, Reacher bangs his head on one of the tables and kills him. Reacher adjusts his body underneath the table and meets Duke outside the warehouse before saying Angel talks too much. Duke was driving Reacher back to the house. During the ride, Duke asked if Angelo had told him anything important. Reacher answered no and placed his hand out through the window, hiding the bloodstain. They arrived at the mansion and Reacher quickly grabbed a quick meal, but just as he was about to eat, Duke approached him saying Beck needed to see him urgently. On getting to Beck's office, Beck looks upset and questioned Reacher about the information he provided about the truck used to kidnap Richard. Apparently, something looks fishy, and Reacher stayed calm and explained his story again in a convincing way, finally winning Beck's trust for the moment.
My job is to protect you and your son. How can I do that if you keep me in the dark?
However, on getting to his room, Reacher quickly called Susan with his hidden phone asking for a car and clothes, and she should meet him by a river behind Beck's mansion at midnight. At midnight, he sneaked outside and swam across the river. He got to the meeting point and they drove off. While driving, Reacher told Susan about Angel Doll's body and their need to erase any clues that could implicate him. Susan agreed to help him, but also insisted on the continuation of searching for her missing undercover agent at the same time. They drove to the store where Reacher had hidden Angel Doll's corpse and checked every corner for sign of the missing agent, hoping for a clue or a hostage, but none was found. Susan then uses Angel Doll's fingerprints to unlock his laptop, hoping the files inside will reveal something useful, and move his body inside one of the large containers at the store. As they were cleaning the bloodstains, they heard a truck approaching. Two men arrived looking for Angel Doll, and a fight broke out.
AD, where the hell's your car? Where the hell is he? Is that blood?
And in the end, Reacher and Susan killed the two men and hid their bodies with Angel Dolls, making sure no one can find them. Later on, Reacher swims back across the river. Before dawn, he hid Angel's gun at the riverbank and sneaked back into the mansion. The next morning, Beck gave him a new task, taking Richard to town for some shopping and keep an eye on him. During their trip, a group of teenage bullies tries to pick on Richard, but Reacher quickly put them in their place. Later on, they both sat on a curb talking. Richard revealed that his father worked for someone even more powerful, who is simply the shadowy figure Reacher had been trying to locate for a long time. Once they both returned home, Reacher saw Beck and Duke preparing to head out to a secret meeting place Susan had arranged using Angel Doll's email. Beck seems eager for Reacher to join them, offering him even more money if he could come along. Reacher then pretended he wanted to grab something first, so he rushed to the riverbank and retrieved Angel Doll's gun and joined them in the journey. They arrived at the abandoned safe house late in the evening, setting down an ambush, but Reacher insisted they should still go in. On getting inside, Reacher pulled out his gun, pointing it at Duke, demanding to know what happened to the missing undercover agent, but Duke refused to answer. Reacher shot him without warning, and gunfire echoed in the empty rooms, but Reacher fired several shots so as to make it seem like a fierce firefight, and he set fires around the safe housing, causing a severe explosion. Reacher managed to run outside with a cut on his chest, looking like he had narrowly escaped an attack. Reacher told Beck that Duke didn't made it out alive, and also showed him Angel Doll's gun, implying that Angel Doll planned a trap for them. Beck, frustrated by Duke's death, believed Reacher's story without questioning. So Beck made Reacher his new second in command. At that moment, Reacher knew he was one step closer in finding the missing agent.
You're about to be my new number 2.
And getting to the real boss behind Beck's entire operation.
Susan, Duffy, meet Angel Doll.
Where's Duke? Dead.
On their way, Zachary informed McCabe how Angel Doll had been trying so hard to betray him by trying to kidnap Richard, and that if it wasn't for Jack, things would have gone their way. Zachary also informed McCabe about the death of Duke while also blaming Angel Doll. Unbeknownst to him, all this was all Reacher's plans. Later, Reacher met with Duffy and apologized for blowing up a DA safe house to erase all evidence of Duke's murder, and then get straight to examining the pictures that she and Guillermo had taken when a large shipment of Bazaar had entered Maine. Soon after, Duffy shows Reacher a picture of Quinn she took earlier with the opinion that he might just be their boss, but immediately Reacher recognizes McCabe as Xavier Quinn, someone he had killed several years ago. Reacher began to narrate the whole incident that occurred years before. So back when the 110th wasn't even established, Jack was single-handedly looking into a case involving an Army specialist named Roland Gorowski. His superior, General Leon Garber, assigned Sergeant Dominique Cole to the case as Reacher assistant. His superior wanted to just help hasten the whole process of the investigation, as Reacher himself has been overloaded with a lot of work on his desk. Although at that time Jack was still the lone wolf type, he wasn't happy about taking Cole under his wings. But within a matter of seconds, Jack's opinion changed, as Cole arrived and proved to be quite the formidable detective. She posited the theory that Jack's suspect, Gorowski, was being coerced by someone to commit crimes. Soon after, Jack and Cole went for a stakeout in order to investigate further. While they did so, the two bonded over their relationship with their respective dads, hunting, and more. She also informed Reacher that her dad died 5 years ago, but she also sometimes go for hunting. Just then, Gorowski gave them the slip, and the exchange was done right under their noses. Days after, even though Jack had nothing to pin on Gorowski, he had a hunch that he will break under pressure. So Reacher put him in an interrogation room and got Cole to pressure him for selling state secrets. So after much serious back and forth, Gorowski revealed the person he is in control is dangerous, a psychopath and someone nobody messes with. During this, he also revealed that Quinn had kidnapped his 4-year-old daughter, thereby forcing him to do his bidding. We're also meant to know that Cole was so good at her job that she was acting just like Jack would have in her position of interrogation.
You don't know who you're dealing with. Xavier Quinn.
That same day, the two go to seek for some help from Private Anthony Frasconi, and from his findings, a man named Safwan Qasim is a Syrian national with military ties whose cover job is a senior research fellow at a think tank. So basically, this should be the guy Quinn sells secrets to. It also seems Anthony have a crush on Cole. At night, they go for another investigation outside a nightclub. So after a few moments, they sighted their targets, so quickly, Reacher and his crew walked towards Qasim. They introduced themselves to him, but unfortunately, Qasim isn't interested in following them for any questions. Immediately, a quick battle ensues with Qasim's men. Reacher and Cole arrested Qasim and took him away for questioning. However, Reacher stated that once they had all the necessary paperwork ready, they just needed to ascertain whether the stuff that Quinn was selling to Qasim was authentic or not. Days after days, they all continued their investigation, after which Qasim was thrown out of the country with a very serious warning by Jack after he had obtained the documents from him. Frasconi found Quinn's location, and as soon as Cole confirmed that Quinn was selling real military intel, she teamed up with Frasconi to arrest him while Reacher waited at the office for them. But as time goes on, Reacher began to panic as he feels something must have gone wrong. Quickly, Reacher texted Cole, which she replied by but with the word "sir," which in return made Reacher realize something serious had gone wrong, as from day one, he had instructed Cole not to refer him as sir but by his name. Unfortunately, when Reacher and his crew busted into the building, he discovered Frasconi had died trying to protect Cole, something he had warned him not to do. They also figured out that Quinn had abducted Cole to get her to talk about all the information that she had on him. Jack and Garber worked together to locate a secluded house that Quinn had under his name. So instead of waiting for backup, Reacher drove to the destination in order to get hold of Quinn. Once Reacher got to the location, he found a Cole lifeless body hanging. Reacher then proceeded to find Quinn, which after a while he found Quinn. Reacher walked him to a ledge near his villa and shot him in the head, which caused him to fall into the river. Jack apparently used Quinn's gun to shoot him. Unfortunately, it used small caliber bullets. So it didn't injure the inside of his head, it just lodged into his skull, leading to some memory loss. According to Reacher narration, he couldn't save Cole. After all the torturing Quinn had done to her, it was obvious that she had bled to death. This was actually the first scene we get to see Reacher break down. Back to the present day, Duffy revealed to Jack that she actually didn't pay Teresa to go undercover, but she threatened her with a prison sentence. Plus, she also promised Teresa that if she helped them, she will get the DEA offer back. Later, Reacher got home and soon began to have a long conversation with Annette and Agnes, where he learns that Zachary's 50th birthday is coming soon. Later that day, Annette brings some new clothes for Jack because he is now Zachary's number 2, and he can't go around wearing a single cloth. The scene shifted to Guillermo and Duffy reaching a warehouse with the help of Angel Doll's laptop to see if they can find anything damning there. Unbeknownst to them, it was all a trap by Quinn, who is now in control of Angel Doll laptop. Zachary quickly gave Reacher the address, instructing him to eliminate whoever is with the laptop. Immediately, Reacher kept trying his best to reach Duffy and her partner regarding an impending danger ahead, but the calls are blocked due to the factory lining. He immediately calls Steve Elliott, who calls the duo at the factory number, and luckily for them, Duffy picks up in the nick of time before a serious shooting begins. Just then, Reacher also arrived just in time to help out. Once he was in, he quickly began eliminating them. Duffy also eliminated few of the goons. As Duffy and Villanueva run out of the factory, one of Beck's goons named Harley is left alive, so Reacher immediately picked him using his vehicle in order to chase after Duffy. So in order to stop the chase, Reacher runs the car into a ditch, leaving them unable to chase after his friends. Still, the encounter is enough to prove to Harley that the people he just shot at were federal agents, and that raises some flags for Beck and his operations. The scene then shifted as Reacher assisted Harley in getting rid of the dead bodies of the men killed at the factory. He discovers that there is a spot where the water current is so fast that when they dump the bodies, they vanish into thin air. Reacher makes a mental note of the thing. So once Reacher was done getting rid of bodies, he calls up Duffy to check if she and Guillermo are now safe. He also tells Duffy to be careful now, and he has her badge in his possession, which Reacher will hide in a pillow cover in his room until he meets her again. Just as they were discussing, Reacher is soon interrupted by Beck yelling his name, so immediately he hang up as Beck beckons him to take care of the 2 men who have been sent by Quinn after the run-in with the DA agents of the warehouse. So Reacher got into the house for business, although Reacher is supposed to quell those guys' apprehensions about how Beck is running things. But things got intense when one of the guys passes sexual remarks at Annette. During the heat of the moment, Reacher knocks him out.
Funny now.
Once Reacher was done with that, he headed straight in his room to hide Duffy's badge, but just then he heard a knock. So he goes to check it out, only to find out that Annette had leaves a thank you note and a pie in front of Jack's bedroom for his act of chivalry, which he gladly accepts. Meanwhile, at the DEA hideout, where Elliot is babysitting, the guy who was driving Richard's car when he was kidnapped. Just as Elliot was doing so, John pleads with Elliot to help him out with a cigarette, and since Elliot is such a nice guy, he breaks protocol in order to help his hostage, unbeknownst to him that it was a trap. As soon as Elliot ignites the lighter, Cooper spits out the alcohol, thereby setting Elliot on fire, and then Cooper proceeds to stomp on Elliot's head until he is dead. Unfortunately, by the time Duffy got to the cabin, she found Elliot's lifeless body on the floor and discovered John Cooper had escaped. Immediately, she called Reacher to inform him of the whole situation at head, because if Cooper gets to Beck or gets in touch with Quinn, he's going to expose Reacher's true identity and plans. Duffy informed Reacher he has to leave the building immediately, as the mission has been compromised, but Reacher knew the bodyguard will head straight to Beck's house to expose everything. To stop the bodyguard, Reacher team up with Guillermo, one of Susan's team member, to come up with a plan. So since Guillermo is close to the highway, Reacher call him to inform him of Elliot passing, and also to get to the location where they are going to kill Cooper. On the other hand, Duffy goes to the nearby transformer and destroys it, which kills the power supply at the estate. Meanwhile, Reacher makes up a story to Beck informing Beck that since he has killed Angel Doll and his associates, he is certain that those who Angel Doll was working for are looking to get revenge. So nearby, Guillermo prepared himself while Reacher drove to his destination. Once Reacher arrived, he told Guillermo to flip his car by the roadside in order to use the slope to their advantage to push the car over. Then Guillermo is asked to get inside the vehicle in order to make it seem like he was in a car accident. Just as the two discuss, they heard sound of an incoming vehicle approaching their way, and luckily for them, it was Cooper. Immediately, he stopped to help out, and just then Reacher shoot him dead. Reacher informed Duffy about the death of Cooper, just as he was driving back to Beck's house. Back inside the house, McCabe orders Beck to search his staff and make sure there aren't any moles in there. Immediately, they all began to search the whole building, so when Reacher arrived, he is shocked to find everywhere empty. He goes into Beck's office to inform him everything was under control, but at that moment, Beck informed Reacher that while he was gone, he had this boy search the whole place for a mole. However, we discover that while Quinn's men didn't find Duffy's badge that was in Reacher's room, they do discover a secret phone, just like the one Reacher has been using to communicate with Duffy in Annette's room. It turns out that Annette wasn't just a maid. She was working for an organization known as ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. So immediately Reacher requested to speak to her in hopes that he can save her or buy her some time by interrogating her, but unfortunately, he is shocked to learn that Paulie has killed her. In anger, Reacher punched Paulie, but sadly this didn't even affect him, but instead, Paulie hit Reacher, making him realize that he was no match for Paulie. Later on, Harley and Jack head out to dump Annette's body, and he informed Reacher to keep his mouth shut about Annette being dead as the other maid were told she was fired for simply stealing from Beck business. The two eventually got to the location where Annette was killed, and Reacher is sad to find her in such state. Once they were done, Reacher calls Duffy to let her know about Annette's death, and he informs her that an ATF agent's presence in Beck's estate means that McCabe is using Beck's rug business to smuggle guns. The next day, Beck informed Reacher that they have been summoned to the warehouse by Quinn. So when Reacher called Duffy to inform her the whole situation, she tells him to make an excuse and not go for the meeting, because if Quinn is faking his amnesia, he's going to recognize Jack immediately and kill him instantly. Reacher refused, and once the call was over, Reacher drove Beck to go meet with Quinn, and after a long drive, they arrive at their destination, where Reacher armed himself just in case of necessity.
I've been waiting for this moment for some time now.
Once the two met in person, surprisingly, Quinn has no idea who Reacher is, thereby proving the amnesia he claimed to suffer after Reacher shot him in the face 13 years ago was true. During their discussion, it is revealed that Teresa is still alive as Quinn's men are seen with a red dress, which is obviously for Teresa, but she is about to be offered as a deal sweetener to a Russian crime boss. Once the Russian crime boss arrived, Quinn informed Reacher and Paulie to stay behind him and look scary during the operation, and nobody pull out a gun unless they see him doing so.
And nobody pull a gun unless you see me do it first.
During all this, they get to discover that there is actually a boss tier above Quinn, and that Quinn is in debt to the Russian mob, who helped him get set up on the East Coast. It is a web of evil organizations. Taktarov is not happy about the delayed shipments and threatens Quinn that things will get ugly if he is not careful. Afterwards, Reacher and Beck drive back home. So on their way, Beck explained to Reacher that when Quinn moved his operation back to the East Coast, he needed capital, and he did so by going to the Russian mob for a loan. They helped get things set up, for example, kidnapping Richard and taking over Beck's business, and now he's in a spot of bother. So the problem here is if this deal doesn't go through, then Quinn will be killed. Therefore, his life literally depends on making the sale happen. Later, Reacher went out with Beck's son to get a birthday gift for Beck. But on the other hand, Reacher uses this as an opportunity to meet with Duffy to catch up and go over the details of the case. She also thanked Reacher for not killing Quinn, but Reacher informed her that he is still going to do so eventually, but first he needs to save their target, which is Teresa. So out of nowhere, Duffy ends up kissing Reacher, and she herself is shocked by this. Immediately, she informed Reacher such won't happen again, as she would not be romantically involved with someone she works with. Just as they discuss, Guillermo Villanueva shows up, and everything goes out the window because Richard arrived at the scene to find the cop which Reacher had claimed to kill in the previous episode. On their way back home, and with the cover potentially blown, Reacher speaks to Richard, revealing what is going on here. He explains about Reacher's mission and the DEA agents, including how he is going to take down Quinn's operation.
Cave's the other reason I'm here. I'm gonna end him.
Over in Virginia, McCabe has his men move in on Officer Powell, the man who initially gave Reacher information about Quinn's operation. The scene shifted to Chicago, where some goons are approaching Reacher best a friend named Neagley and bid to eliminate her. Fortunately for Neagley, she sees them first and take cover. After a beeping sound from her microwave, Neagley attacked them, and a serious chase began, followed by a gun shootout, which ended with Neagley killing the two assassins. Back to Officer Powell, he is seriously tortured for info, and eventually spills the beans about the plates being run on one of their cars, while Quinn listened and watched from his phone. Meanwhile, Neagley manages to get information from one of the assassins who is still conscious and learns about the operation, along with the fact that somebody by the name of Costapolo sent him. Immediately, she called Reacher to inform him of the situation, and quickly Reacher realized that if Quinn sent some assassin to kill Neagley, That means he is coming for him or anyone checking up on him. That same evening, Quinn arrived at Beck home to question him on Reacher, and it is quite obvious that Reacher cover is now blown. Quickly, Quinn ordered Paulie to go kill Reacher, and once he got to Reacher's room, he realized Reacher is now gone. Reacher races out the compound. While he does manage to get away, the mounted machine gun in the booth by the entrance certainly does a number on his car, and he is forced to go it on foot after. A very serious shootout ensues in the woods. Reacher manages to eliminate one of the goons approaching him in form of ghost mood, taking out the guards one by one. After all this, Reacher head into a store and pay them heavily to close. Back to Quinn, who is cutting things with a knife while he chit-chat with Beck. So when Paulie arrives to whispers something to his ear, mainly about the Reacher forest elimination, he gets furious and orders Paulie to get Richard into the kitchen. Afterwards, Quinn forces Richard to play Russian roulette in front of his father. At first, Richard hesitated not to as he pointed the gun toward Quinn, but after much push from Quinn, the poor kid has no choice than to pull the trigger 3 times.
Do it again! Come on!
Fortunately for Richard, the gun didn't go off. The scene shifted to Duffy bringing Reacher to the safe house, and they all discussed about how they're running out of time since Reacher's cover is blown. Just then they got some information of Teresa whereabouts, so Reacher and Duffy track her to a boat, but they're too late. Although she was there not long ago. Just then the soldier who was in charge of keeping her captive arrived, and Duffy and the man go into a one-on-one fist fight. Reacher seriously injured him, and he began to confess what he knew to Reacher and how he was paid $1,000 per day. They beat him up and let him die as the boat explodes. Later on, Reacher revealed that they still have a lead, but first they have to get to Los Angeles.
Do it again!
Some armored punk and a PI in Chicago access files on my guys.
Need you to come get me. My cover's blown.
Duffy and Reacher drive to make their trip to Los Angeles, but firstly, Duffy insisted to meet with an old friend first before leaving. Once the stop was made, the two had a pretty conversation with the elderly lady, who was simply Teresa's grandmother. After which, she insisted they all have something to eat together. Duffy gave her some assurance that they are making progress in the search for her granddaughter, and they will also do everything in their power to bring Teresa back home. The scene shifted to Chicago, where we get to see Neagley roughs handling a man known as Costopoulos, who seems to be the local gangster who was hired by Quinn to send his men to kill Neagley. She got all the information she needs out of Costopoulos on Xavier Quinn, and also especially on their business name Bizarre Bazaar. As Neagley makes her way to Maine, Duffy and Reacher continue to devise a plan and also investigate about their target. In the evening, after Reacher contacts his informant about their suspect, he informed Duffy that as of now, their success rate to save Teresa if everything goes as planned tomorrow would move from 2% to 25%.
Sort of 25%. So.
That's good.
After hearing such news, Reacher and Duffy then proceeded to have the time of their life. The next day, Jack and Duffy corner Prado, who was their prime target, and get him to take them to his art gallery.
Jam you up for years with court dates and expensive lawyers. Or you can come with us.
Once Jack and Duffy are sure that Prado doesn't have his security to help him out, they threaten him with jail time if he doesn't get them a meeting with Beck. The moment Prado does Jack and Duffy's bidding, Duffy makes a call to the DA, and they swoop in to see if they can get some dirt on him.
There's the face. There's the cousin Rhonda face, right there.
Afterwards, we get to see Reacher and his crew watching Neagley from afar. As soon as Beck enters the frame, it becomes clear that he's paid the price for bringing Jack into his operations by cutting off his ear. Neagley tells him that she was sent by Reacher. However, Beck, realizing what Quinn had done to him, seems to be doing anything in his powers to prevent Quinn from hurting Richard anymore. Neagley tells Beck that if he wants to come out of this ordeal alive, he needs to tell her the location of the sale so that Jack can take care of Quinn before Quinn can harm Beck or Richard. Beck revealed to Neagley that he only knows that the buyers from Yemen are landing at a private airfield. Beyond that, he has no idea, and he has been told to just enjoy his 50th birthday party while he still can. Neagley urges Beck to try and find out everything he can about the sale, and also get some info on where Teresa is being held. The scene cut to Quinn arriving in a very secluded basement, where we finally get a glimpse of Teresa, who is being held in the basement of the abandoned warehouse and is being pumped with drugs so that she doesn't kick up a fuss.
Got no idea. Look, you have red hair.
On the other hand, Jack, Duffy, Neagley, and Guillermo devise a plan for their next steps while they all eat and wait for Beck's call. Neagley then takes Jack for a private conversation, firstly about Quinn not been dead, and secondly, a chat about how he is feeling regarding involving her and Duffy in this mission, for 2 very different reasons, by the way. Jack says that he trusts everyone to pull their weight, including Guillermo, and he has learned to compartmentalize his personal feelings well enough to not let them come in the way of him and the job at hand. Later in the evening, Neagley follows the Yemeni buyers, while Beck informs Quinn that all the guns are ready to be presented for sale. Beck asks Quinn where the truck full of guns is supposed to go, so that he can relay the information to Jack. Quinn tells Beck that the transaction is going to take place at the Bullhead salvage yard. Neagley followed the buyers to their location and immediately called Reacher, and just then, Beck called Reacher to inform him of the location where the business will be held at. So just as Reacher prepared to leave for the location, he stopped Duffy and her partner. They informed Reacher that they want to bring in the ATF because the mission has become too risky, and they think that the four of them can't pull this off on their own anymore. Jack thinks that he won't get his vengeance against Quinn, and reminded them that justice won't be served for his dead friends which Quinn had killed, especially for the death of Cole, but his passionate words don't scare Guillermo and Duffy, and they set up a meeting with the ATF anyway. After the whole meeting, the ATF chief named Doug Sears reprimands Duffy and Guillermo for taking so long to bring all this information to them, but when they try to hijack the mission, Duffy and Guillermo argue that it's not right. However, Duffy and Guillermo's protests fall on deaf ears. Immediately, Reacher warns Sears that the man behind all this is known as Xavier Quinn, who used to work with him in the military and got away a decade ago, but Reacher made a promise also that he would be the one to take him down, but yet again the ATF leader still doesn't care about all this, as he claims this mission is now theirs. He also shuts Reacher down. Before leaving the office, Sears tells Duffy and Guillermo their professional careers are as good as over, so they should start writing their goodbye letters to their colleagues. At the safe house, Reacher takes a nap, and just then, Duffy addresses an obviously sad Reacher, so that he understands that his mission to personally see to Quinn's death could risk Teresa's life. Back to the ATF team, they sets up their people in and around the salvage yard, while Duffy and Reacher stay back in a van to watch. Reacher, who can't take this anymore, walked out of the van in anger to take some air. Unfortunately, he just went out to get his sniper ready, which Duffy saw in shock. As Reacher goes against protocol by setting his sniper rifle, because he doesn't trust the ATF to kill Quinn. Reacher soon realized that the whole sale is a ruse or trap set up by Quinn when he gives a call to Neagley, and she says that the buyers are not at the salvage yard.
The buyers are flying in sometime today from Yemeni.
Brad, check in.
On your call.
Martinez.
Standing by.
What do you mean the buyers are here? I'm still following them.
Aaron's not here. It's a trap.
The last episode of Reacher Season 3 opens with Quinn men arriving at the scene, which simply prove it was all a trap by Quinn to set Beck up. Just as they all took to their position, a very massive gun shootout between the ATF and Quinn's men at the Bullhead salvage yard began. However, Reacher, Duffy, and Guillermo do their best to save as many of the ATF agents as they can by taking out Quinn's men and, most importantly, getting Beck out of the mess without any problems. Reacher eliminated as many as he could, but unfortunately, the ATF soldiers and Quinn's men, except for one of the truck drivers who had brought Quinn's men to the salvage yard, don't survive the attack. Once the fight was over, Reacher informs Duffy, Guillermo, and Beck that the actual deal is happening at Beck's estate and that Neagley is headed over to the place. On the other hand, Beck confirms that Teresa is at the estate, but in a zombie-like way, as it seems Quinn had seriously drugged her. So they need to get there before the negotiation between Quinn and the Yemeni buyers concludes. Since the truck driver is their only way in, Reacher gets him to send a message to Quinn that the plan to kill Beck has gone down smoothly and that he is returning to the estate with his men. Quinn buys this lie from Reacher and gets busy buttering up his Yemeni dealers. Meanwhile, Neagley continued to monitor the whole situation from outside, but just then, Reacher informed her of the whole situation of what actually happened earlier and their plans regarding entering Beck's mansion. Neagley informed Reacher that the buyers are already at the mansion, but the deal hasn't been made yet. Back to Xavier Quinn, he offers his buyer Teresa as a gift since he is known for having pretty ladies. Quinn then gives him the key so he can have fun with Teresa. After a while, Reacher, Duffy, Neagley, Guillermo, and Beck approach the estate in Quinn's trucks, while Paulie doesn't notice anything, at least at first. Just then Paulie arrived,
so we follow Reacher's lead and hopefully we all walk out of here.
But unfortunately, Reacher had already killed the driver off scene. Paulie came in to investigate what's going on, while the rest sneak into the mansion. And just as Paulie did so, Reacher tried to strangle him, but Paulie, who was obviously strong, found a way to free himself. And a serious fight ensues, with Reacher struggling seriously, as Paulie kept on punching him. After a long extended battle between them, Reacher manages to defeat Paulie, although in a very, very lucky way. Back inside the mansion, Neagley disguises herself as a waiter to keep track of Quinn and the buyers. Duffy goes looking for Teresa, and Guillermo goes to protect Richard, because Beck can't be seen anywhere, as the story was that he is already dead at the salvage yard. Meanwhile, just as they all did in accordance to the plan, Guillermo was caught by one of Quinn's men, and a serious battle began between them. The scene shifted, and in a plot twist, Paulie is seen gaining consciousness. So when he go to check on Reacher, he found out he was unconscious. Immediately, Paulie proceeded to get a chain to tie Reacher, and bid to finish him for good. During this, Reacher became awake to find Paulie strangling him with a chain round his neck. Just as Paulie leave, Reacher began to find a way to free himself, and after a while, he was already down, and now with a weapon ready to finish whatever is going on between them. Back to Guillermo, he manages to kill his opponent after a really hard-to-watch fight. Just then, Richard arrived to find Guillermo at the restroom. Back to Reacher versus Paulie, they continue to battle things which eventually led them to fall into the riverbank where Beck dropped whoever is killed. Although this doesn't stop them as they continue to fight vigorously. The water current seems to be very strong. However, Reacher took this to his advantage as he eliminated Paulie for good this time. So just as Reacher head back into the mansion, yet again Paulie arrived to meet Reacher.
You gotta be kidding me.
Seems any of them doesn't want to die. Jack gets to the guns at the entrance, but Paulie arrived also, and yet another epic fight ensues. Just as Paulie tried landing the final blow on Reacher, the gun fired backwards, killing Paulie instantly, something Reacher had learned in the army. On the other hand, Duffy finds Teresa, and when the buyer arrived to have some fun, Duffy came out and shoots down a Yemeni buyer named Nasser. Reacher eventually got to the barn to get the guns out, and once the buyers arrive at the scene, he eliminated them all. After which, he went into the building and began shooting every one of them. So when Quinn realized something has gone wrong, he shoots the Yemeni buyers and takes their money so that he can pay off his Russian associate, Taktarov. This was a very serious gunfire as almost everyone gets into a gunfight, and during this chaos, Quinn holds Richard hostage because he knows that the kid is his only way out of the mansion. But unfortunately, Beck arrived just in time to point a gun at Xavier Quinn. Just while he pointed his gun at him, we discovered that was the broken toy Richard had gotten for this dad as a birthday present. Unfortunately, Beck sacrificed himself to give Richard the chance to get to one of the many guns in his workspace and shoot at Quinn. After which, he ran straight to meet his dad in a really bad condition. Neagley also arrived at the scene. Back to Reacher, he continued to eliminate those on his path. Quinn somehow escapes from the mansion, but is captured by the Russians. Jack, Guillermo, and Duffy surround the Russians so that they can't get away with Quinn. Once things got tense, Neagley arrived with the money that Quinn had taken from the Yemenis and give it to them in exchange of Xavier Quinn's life. But Taktarov still insisted that he will have to take the money and Quinn. So Neagley pulls out a grenade, unbeknownst to the Russians that it doesn't have the fuse in it, and gives him a counteroffer: leave Quinn alone and take the money or else everyone dies. Taktarov's obviously takes the bag of money and leave Quinn to his death. After which, everyone leave Quinn and Reacher alone so that the latter can settle his score with Quinn. Quinn still doesn't remember who Reacher is, but when Reacher brings up Dominique's name, and Quinn's memories come rushing back to him. It's at that moment that Reacher blows Quinn's brains out with a shotgun. At least this time nothing would remain in that his skull to be alive. The next day, the medics arrive to take care of Teresa. Duffy puts the blame of Quinn's death on the Russians. So Reacher approached Richard to give him the cat keys and also informed him to take as much money as he can as the Fed are coming soon, and when that happens, they will freeze all Beck assets. He then proceeded to say his goodbye to Richard and advise him to take care of himself. Richard revealed that he is very proud of what his dad had done regarding Beck standing up to Quinn. After the two and a very long discussion, Reacher pathways. So on his way out, he met Duffy, and the both continue their conversation on what the Fed thinks about the whole operation. Just then, she puts an end to her romance with Reacher in the sweetest and funny way possible, as she informed Reacher that she is not into the stick-to-you or make-it-last type of relationship, and she is better at doing her own thing, although Reacher is her favorite.
You might just be my favorite.
Okay.
That's it? Okay.
And it is really funny to Reacher as she just stole the speech he normally say at the end of his relationship. After which, she kissed Reacher and told him to stay safe. Days later, Duffy and Guillermo visit the Elliott household to meet the deceased agent's family. We get to see Reacher taking his bike to travel, while Richard takes the cash that Beck had stashed away in a secret place and hits the road as a free man. Guillermo goes back home to enjoy his retirement with his wife named Maureen. As for Teresa, she reunites with her grandmother. We see as Jack hit the road moving towards a different city, and then the show came to an end. Kindly do well by subscribing to our channel for more recap. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.